Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us John Bellamy, who is the founder of Direct MSGing. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, so I see from your bio that you've been around the business world for quite a while, since 1999, helping thousands of clients in a whole variety of industries. So give us a little bit of background on yourself and then what led you to start the direct messaging company.
Yeah, sure. So I'm probably like a lot of young Australians, and probably the same with young people across the world, where we went and we thought we were doing great at school, and then the results came in, and we were like, oh, that wasn't as pleasing as we were expecting. So I started essentially knocking on doors. Wow. After that, and just sort of did the hustle and the grind, and did knocking on doors, and that sort of led into a corporate career in the advertising and the direct response marketing field here in Australia with one of the big advertising firms, communication firms. And that's where sort of LinkedIn came into the mix when it was first coming out. Probably like everybody, you're getting all of these messages in your inbox all the time saying, hey, you should connect with this person on LinkedIn. And yeah, we're like, what is this thing? And I finally, bit the bullet and jumped in there and had a look, and I went, oh, hold on a second. This is a great way for me to, keep in contact with my corporate clients at that time, and my, working my database. And one thing led to another, and I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I just started going, okay, well, how can we actually use this not as what LinkedIn probably initially intended, which was a recruitment platform, but how can we use this to really, position your expertise, drive conversations that lead to sales? And voila, here we are now, and do that for ourselves and our clients, and, show people how to do it, and it's great.
Yeah, so I want to dig in deeper into that, but a couple of points that I want to bring up just to kind of see if where I am thinking is what you've experienced in the past. Because you mentioned something really interesting that a lot of people never do, which is knock on doors. And that is grind and hustle and hardcore and all of that in sales. It's even worse than telemarketing and cold calling people, because you're getting the door slammed in your face many days. So here's a question. I remember way back in the day of sales training where you would hear, maybe the trainer would say, when you finally get in to meet with Mr. Big Shot and you're waiting in his waiting room, before they take you into his office, notice some things about him. Does he like fishing? Does he like sailboating? And bring up those things to talk about, to break the ice. Have you found that being able to see things on LinkedIn really helps to zero in on bypassing all of that? Because many times you're able to do a search, see what organizations they are connected with, see what kind of likes and people they're connected to, and you can do a lot of that just very quickly looking at your prospect's LinkedIn profile, right?
Yeah, 100% with that. And I think it's the big thing behind that as well, where I feel a lot of people fall off, is that they don't have that level of curiosity as well. As we know, using the knocking on doors scenario, they knock on doors and they go straight in for the pitch because, they believe that if I don't get my message across in the first 3 seconds, the door's going to be slammed in my face. Whereas really humanizing that connection and actually, having an interest in people. Yes, we are there 100% to close a deal. We're in sales and marketing. That's what we're there for. But having the thought process behind that to go, all right, well, if I can position my expertise so I know specifically what I'm about, and then build those client avatars around that using LinkedIn Sales Navigator and things to go, right, how can I, if I'm going to reach out with my message to this person, what's the likelihood of them more or likely, or more or less likely to actually want to engage in a conversation?
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing. So it's really you're a positioning coach. So it's really around, for me, it's that positioning of your profile, positioning of the message sequence, positioning of what's that conversation look like. It really does come down to that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there is another aspect that you hear is a big benefit of LinkedIn, which is this accurate from your experience? If you found the CEO of a company that you would love to connect with, and you somehow found their phone number and email address and reached out by phone and left a message, they're not going to call you back. Send them an email. They probably have a secretary or someone watching their emails, and you're probably not going to get them there either. But through LinkedIn, you most probably are going to connect with them, because that once your connection, then that goes directly to their mainly watched email address. So you have a much higher chance of connecting with those decision makers because of how LinkedIn is set up. Is that a good explanation?
It's an absolute very fair explanation. And I would highly recommend doing a combination of exactly what you said. Around that as well, like using that sort of multi-channel approach.
Yes.
From there works really well. And I think the other thing with the CEO scenario as well, a lot of people go, oh, they will never speak to me. But if you put the message in a right way, most CEOs, like, their number one interest is ensuring that their company's, profitability and growth and the team's humming along. That's what their job is. So if it's something that's going to be of value to that organization, even though they may not personally have the bandwidth for it, more often than not, they will actually refer you through to the right person. And if they can do that connection via LinkedIn, naturally the conversation will progress so much quicker than if it was just a simple fob off, oh, you should go and speak to Mary. Leveraging that introduction as well would be perfect.
And, here's another thing that I think LinkedIn, maybe you will know the answer to this, but I don't know right off. But, if you're not connected on LinkedIn and you click the button to connect and you want to connect with a message, you don't just want to hit connect, because then that's the just the standard.
Standard.
Yeah. So, but isn't there a limit to how much text you can put into that message? In other words, you're not going to send them a 19-paragraph introduction in that request, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's about 150 to 180 characters.
Right.
They do change it and they do tweak it from time to time, and like we're sending hundreds of thousands of connection requests every year for our clients, and so we've got a fairly good handle on it. But yeah, it just needs to be really, it actually just needs to be really simple but personalized.
Yeah.
That's
some way to
stand
stand out.
Follow-up. Yeah, and then it's the follow-up that comes through, which is important, because the big challenge is, most people do nothing, but the ones that do something, most of them will just either send a connection request and then never do anything off the back of that.
Yes.
Or a lot of people aren't even open to accepting a connection request because they go, well, I don't know who you are.
Well,
and I go, well,
So here's, I think, is the big. It's kind of like if we had someone listening to this interview right now and we were saying to them, maybe we put them on the hot seat and we said, okay, here's how you need to reach out to those, CEOs, target audience, to really get your business to the next level. You want to find them maybe through Sales Navigator, and then you want to start reaching out to them. Well, in order for you to get that LinkedIn request considered, we need to have that message, and you can coach them on the messaging. But am I correct in thinking that before that person clicks yes to connect, they are doing something super important, and it's exactly what you, John, and I do when people send us requests? What is that? We click to look at their profile and we go, do I even care about this person or this? Why should I click accept on that? So now that brings in, so A, is that correct? And B, if that is correct, now you need to really polish up that profile to make sure when people are doing that before they click accept to your request, that it just really speaks to them.
Yeah, it's your LinkedIn profile is the number one foundational asset.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about it is if you get the copywriting and that, and we use a framework like story, segue, sell, so you're positioning right on your headline, on your background summary, on the experience section. If you get all of that right there, it's not just, a lot of people go, well, it's just on LinkedIn. No, you can go and use that information on Facebook, use it on your website, use it across all platforms. But it is that foundational asset because, there's a very, very extremely high probability that if you send a message to someone, they're actually going to check it out, because they want to see who it is.
And then if your profile does speak to them, then they come back and they click, sure, I'll connect with you. And then you better hope you're not like the people you just alluded to, which is they do nothing about it. So there's a whole process there, but let's pause on that profile. What do you find are the main areas to focus on? You cannot just be, here's my picture and here's my title. What do you give us some tips on regarding the profile?
Yeah, great. So I think so number one, if we start at the very top of the profile, there is your profile photo and your banner image there. So a lot of people still don't invest in getting a good quality headshot. Yeah. So, the token photo of you on the weekend fishing isn't a great profile photo unless you're a fishing tour company. So have a professional looking headshot, go to Snapper and hire a photographer and, get them to come out and take a headshot, or get an iPhone and pull out portrait, if you want to do it that way. But you need to have a good quality headshot. And then the banner image, which is above your headshot, a lot of people actually just leave that blank. So the way you'll know if that's blank is you'll have just sort of like a filler image from LinkedIn, which is like a light blue with a couple little lines on it. So this is where, from an authority positioning perspective as well, this is where you might want to put your brand colors, your logos, and even specializing in like a couple of little bullet points that just indicates immediately to that target audience, to that prospect, this is who I am and what I do. And we're just talking about your profile and your banner. Next, you really want to go into your headline. Now, on your headline, if you don't do anything with this, it will automatically just pre-fill with your job title and company. So I like to use, we've all probably heard of like Business Networks International or BNI, and, they stand up at their little networking events and share the little elevator pitch. It's the perfect example of how you could do that in LinkedIn. And the easiest way to create a headline is to use something, and, this can be tweaked a gazillion different ways, but I help insert target market achieve X result, or I help insert target market, solve X solution. And just creating a headline that way. So when somebody lands on your LinkedIn profile, the very first two things they're going to see is your profile photo and your headline. Now, before they scroll any further, they're just going to see that. Yeah. So if that's eye-catching, that you got the tick. So they're going to go read further, which then brings you down into the About Us or the background summary. And most people, once again, have nothing here, or they might have the copy and paste job of the About Us section of their website here. All of that's sort of wrong. It's not doing you any justice. So this is where you've got around about 2,000 characters, so about 3/4 of an A4 page. And the way I like to look at it, for me, because we've got our marketing and sales hat on, this is a micro or a mini sales letter. And, every good sales letter starts with a headline, talks about, it addresses the elephant in the room, the problems and challenges that you help solve, and then comes into who you are, shares a bit of credibility, and then has a call to action. So we follow this framework, which is story, segue, sell. So the story angle is like, hey, maybe you've experienced this problem or challenge, or perhaps you've, seen this XYZ, before, blah, 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 blah. And then you segue into, hi, it's John here. And for over, 20 years, I've been doing XYZ, helping businesses like you. In fact, this is what some of our clients say, bullet point, testimonial, and then go into the sell component. And the sell's literally, hey, so if you had got this problem and you're open to having a chat about finding a solution, well, let's connect, tee up a call, and away we go. But it's just very informative, not over pushy or anything like that, but it's direct, clear, concise, and it gives, what I like about this, it gives the recipient the opportunity to say yes and accept, or say no and move on. Yeah, we don't want maybes. Maybes are the things that kill us. Yes. So I'm happy for people to not connect with me. Perfect. Yep. That means I'm not going to invest time following up the wrong people.
I'm going to test your old school sales knowledge here and ask a question and then tie it right into what you just said. But do you know what everyone's favorite radio station is?
Oh, Oh yeah. What's in it for me?
Yes, good job.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't really listen to the radio that much. I listen to podcasts. And oh no, that's it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I do get a setup saying old school, but yeah, WIIFM. In fact, I remember I use this example so many times because it speaks to the story and to the connecting with your audience so well. But I remember giving this presentation in front of a group of business owners a few years back, and I had done ahead of the presentation, I had them, introduce themselves. So I knew that there was a radio station manager there. And so I gave the question like I just did. And I said, and by the way, sir, it's not your radio station. It's not, yours is not the favorite. But yeah, WIIFM, being able to speak directly to your target audience based on what's in it for them. They have to realize that your profile is speaking to them enough to give you just that extra little bit to go further down or to accept your connection request.
100%. Yeah, because with LinkedIn, like unless we're connected, we can't really do any follow-up.
Yep.
So it's one of those things. It is literally the knocking on the door.
Yes. Yeah, I agree 1,000%. Okay, so now what's a mistake that you find people make when they're, they think they've optimized their LinkedIn profile, but you come back behind them and you're like, oh, there's still some glaring weaknesses here. What would you recommend that way?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is people just don't know what they don't know. So there's no strategy in place. They think they just jump on and send a connection request and then spam them going, hey, you should buy my stuff. Instead of a process. So the assuming that they've got a profile, and let's just say it's passable, so they can get moving in there. The next thing is they need to create that connection strategy. They need to get a bit of momentum.
Yeah.
So and a big thing behind this is around the mindset of that. Because people are scared, like they're so petrified of what their peers will think of them, of what their clients. I don't want to be labelled as pushy or a spammer. So then they go, oh, it's just safer not to do anything. But then it's everyone else's fault that my business hasn't grown.
Yes.
They really need to commit to a strategy, and they've got to understand, like what we talk about specifically is outbound, like direct response. It's old school. It's not we've written an article and we're hoping that 1,000 people are going to come through that. It's how do we take a proactive approach opposed to a lazy and reactive approach? How do we really take that proactive approach? So they definitely need to get on Sales Navigator. They need to set up those searches on Sales Navigator to get really honed in on who it is that they want to connect with. So we're not just connecting with anybody, we're connecting with our target market. Who are those clients that we know we can help? We just need to get in front of them yet.
And I think that we could give a master class for the next 3 hours on that one, for real. Who is your target market? It's not what you think. And I've said this many, many, many times. And I know that you're not a car dealership, an automobile dealer, but using the example, hey, if you own a car dealership, guess who's your target audience? It's not anyone who needs a vehicle or anyone who drives. You would think I can do all things to all people, and if you need a car, come to my lot. Well, the problem is you then don't become a specialist, and that's what you're talking about. And I would like to ask you, do you find when you work with clients, sometimes they don't even know who their target audience should be? They might think they know, and they say, oh, it's this, but in reality, you guide them and coach them into going deeper, and it really opens up their eyes.
Yeah, 100%. You got to understand that, and as well with any platform, from that aspect as well, is what industries, for example, are more active on the platform.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go, this is my target market, but they're just not active on LinkedIn, or vice versa. They're not as active on Facebook, but they're smashing it on LinkedIn. From that aspect, so getting that right is absolutely critical. But then it's the actual outreach. So we've sent a connection request. Great. Now what? They've accepted. So we suggest, like, typically, more often than not, a 3 to 5 part follow-up sequence over the space of about a 45-day period.
Okay.
And really it's keeping things simple. So they've accepted our connection. We don't want to go straight for the jugular and say, buy my stuff. But we want to actually just thank them. So the first follow-up message is just the simple thank you. Hey, it's great to connect with you. And a lot of the time we'll suggest as well, maybe put a video in there. Like we've all got landing pages and things like that now. Jump in front of the video and say, hey, great to connect with you. Listen, I put this quick video together that shares a little bit more about us and what we can do for you, like why we're here and how we can make the most out of our relationship. And you might link it to some type of free resource, material, podcast episode, whatever it might be. And then we follow up further from there. And most of us now, if we don't have these, we can leverage them. But like Mike, I know on your profile, for example, you've got the case study of the branding guys there. Like for that one, there's an article there. So you could say, hey, listen, I recently put together, we were just working with a client in the branding space. They had some great results. We put a case study together about what they actually went through their process. Just thought I'd share it with you. Hope you find it of value. Let me know what you think.
Yeah.
So it's just giving them bits and pieces and then asking them questions. Hey, I'm curious, like what's your, if you think about this, what's your biggest problem or challenge?
Yep.
Like one of the things.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, one of the things that we always put in there is, great connecting with you based on my profile and skill set. How do you think I can be of service? Because I want them to go back to my LinkedIn profile and actually read it and go, oh, well, yes, John, I need a LinkedIn review, or no, this is not of interest. And I'm like, great.
Yep.
So,
and if you are doing a targeted campaign and you know that these people you're reaching out to would be your ideal client, just really, really high level, right? What I have would recommend, and I've done this, and I literally today had a conversation with this person I'm about to tell you about, and I feel like this was just a really big pivotal point to make my LinkedIn message to them stand out and not feel like maybe it was automated or an assistant. It was actually me. So when they accepted my request and they said, oh yeah, that would be great, we should talk sometime, I shot a quick video and I was like, hey, Monica, thank you so much for connecting. Just wanted to let you know I'm an actual person. I'm not just, sending you these messages randomly. Love to connect with you. Have a nice day. And I sent that to her through the LinkedIn chat messaging, and that just really connected with her. It just really drew her in, because there's so many times people do what you've said previously here. They send the connection request, someone accepts it, and then you never hear from them. Well, what good did that do?
Yeah. But I connect. It's like I shook 5 hands at that networking event. I did my job.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So it's absolutely right. And you've got the way I look at it, you've got sort of like your macro, micro, then personal approaches. So depending on, we've all probably got in our businesses like a list of the A prospects right down to the lower hanging fruit and all of that type of thing. So I definitely, with those higher level, very high transactional clients and things like that, really going down to that nitty gritty of that personalization of that video specifically for them, game changer.
Yep.
But then you might go into more of that micro approach where it might be specific to an industry. So you might be targeting dentists. So it might just be like, hey, it's John here. Listen, I wanted to thank you for accepting my connection. Listen, I love connecting with dentists like yourself.
Yes.
So you might not personalize it to that aspect. And then you've got the macro perspective, which is just a bit more, hey, thanks for connecting on LinkedIn. Listen, one of the things I love about LinkedIn is helping business owners like you, to do X, Y, Z. So it's just looking at the, like anything, what's the transactional value and the opportunity cost behind that factor, and really tailoring that message and the positioning.
And you're definitely not going to shoot videos every single LinkedIn connection request, because that's insane. But yeah, to your point, maybe you do the industry generic one, and then maybe if they accept that request and you look further maybe on their profile and you think, ooh, this one, something about their profile really makes me sit up and take notice. Now I'm going to do a quick follow-up. And it doesn't have to be video. It's just an example. But maybe you noticed something about an article they just posted or an association that they are a member of that maybe have similarity. And now that follow-up message to them on LinkedIn would really cut through all that clutter. You go, hey, I noticed that you enjoy whatever. So do I. And fact, I was just at a conference last month, and I think that it's kind of like those breadcrumb trails that would have people making these little tiny little micro commitments like, okay, I'll accept your request. Oh, okay, I'll respond to that question. And maybe possibly you could ultimately move it to, hey, we ought to jump on the phone and chat. I've got an idea for you. And then that's where the relationship really takes on a whole new level.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think of it this way, like everyone goes, oh, I want thousands of leads and all of this thing. But the reality is most people can't handle them because they don't have the systems in place. So for most consultants, most coaches, most, even service-based business owners out there, if they could leverage LinkedIn just to, from a simple format to get somewhere between 8 to 20 positive conversations happening a month that lead to a meeting, that's a game changer. For most businesses out there, that's just that simple thing. How can we just engage, like start a conversation with 8 to 20 people, like a good quality conversation? And let's say we get 20 conversations going and we only get 8 appointments a month. That's an extra 2 appointments a week. But then you have a good conversion rate. Most business people that we speak to, they're leaving at least 6 figures, like as a minimum, at least 6 figures on the table a year right now because they don't have a LinkedIn strategy in place.
Yeah. And if you look at the demographics, we've all seen them before. The average Facebook user is this age, this income level. Yeah. Well, you look at the average LinkedIn user, and it's just dramatically different. And I would ask you, isn't there? I don't know exact, so you can fill in the gap here. Mm-hmm. But Facebook, you're going to get a lot quicker, maybe engagement response and things like that. Maybe LinkedIn, it could be a teeny bit slower because sometimes you and I don't check LinkedIn, every 10 minutes like people check Facebook. So what about the people you're working with, your clients, that you're saying, okay, when should I start seeing some results? Because maybe I sent that connection request or that follow-up message, and it's been a week and a half and people aren't responding. It could just be because of the cycle of how those people are using LinkedIn, but they'll still use it. It'll still be effective, but you need to set that expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a tricky one to answer because everyone's sales cycle and their offer is so different.
Yeah.
But like what we look at is, and that's why we go, all right, as an initial outreach strategy, let's put in 3 to 5 messages over sort of that 45, maybe 60-day period. And let's start gauging a response, because the intention behind that process, that initial process, is A, who is responding to our messages, so who's positively engaging in our messages, and B, how can we, how many of those people can we get into a meeting, a phone call, a Zoom call, a webinar, whatever that call to action or off the back of that is. So once you've gone through that process, that will give you a bit more of a gauge as far as an idea. But typically, I look at LinkedIn similar to like an SEO strategy, and where you're looking to, you'll start that those compounding results will start happening around that 3, 6, 9 month mark, and you'll just start to see it through. For example, if I use our business, for example, we know that from the minute that someone engages with us, as far as has a phone call with us about doing work, if they don't make a purchase within the initial 90 days of that engagement, the likelihood of them to buy in the next 12 months is less than 5%.
Wow.
So we just know it from the stats. Because their buying cycle's gone, they're onto different thinking and all of that, but they will come back in and re-engage in the conversation 12 months' time from now. The amount of clients that we've picked up where they didn't buy first year around, but then they've come back and bought, 12, 14 months later, it's crazy. So it's just keeping in that process. But we know that, our sweet spot is usually, it's usually about 14 days from initial consult is when they're either going to buy or not, but then you'll still have the stragglers that will come through around that 90 day. But literally, the minute 90 days hits, it's like there's no point, picking up the phone and keep calling them every month. It's just put them in a nurture campaign, occasional message, occasional phone call, and just keep engaging with them softly in that way, because we know more often than not, if it's still a fit, they will come back to us and buy next year.
So for those that are hearing all of this about LinkedIn and feeling a little bit like, I could start it in a week or two or for a week or two, but then I know how busy I get and I know I couldn't keep up with it. And if you start something and don't see it through, then you may as well not start. So tell us a bird's eye view of your service you provide to entrepreneurs and how this could help take that load off of them and get some of these results through LinkedIn.
Yeah, cool. So a couple of things. We've got an online program where we just show you how to do all of this. So we give you the profile templates, the message sequences, and just coach you through the process for you to go and run it. And that's the way a lot of the time we would would suggest a lot of people to start, just to see if they can, get the momentum happening. And because then they've got their own buy-in as well with the process. And then when they get to that stage where it's like, hey, you know what? I can't do this myself. I don't have enough time, whatever, but I've got some money to invest. We suggest that either, are you going to invest internally in resources or are you going to engage somebody like us? So if they do engage somebody like us, we do pretty much the full service side of things. We'll rewrite their LinkedIn profile. We'll craft all the message sequences. We'll act for you as you on LinkedIn. If you're doing the paid ad strategy, which we haven't spoken about today, we'll manage that process for you. And then we work with them around their sales process and their sales cadence, because a lot of the time, what we find is businesses, they go, okay, great, now we've got these connections, we've had these conversations, but now what? They don't have the systems behind that. They can't close the deal. Follow up. Yeah, so we work with them the whole way through. Wow. And really help them, finite that sales process engineering piece on that to go, okay, what does this actually look like?
That's, I'm glad you added that last piece, because you've got some people that go, just tell me what to do and I can do it. I can learn it on my own, do it yourself. That's great. Then some people that go, just do it for me. But then you added that one piece in there, which is it would be a disservice to your clients if you got all of this lead and appointment activity and then they were not able to really bring that to fruition. So being able to coach them on making sure that the sales cadence is in place, the close, the serving with value, all of that, so that you can maximize the results from the LinkedIn campaigns. That's really, really a good all-inclusive package.
Yeah, because I tell you, it's disheartening if we go and generate, 70 positive conversations for a client to go and pick up the phone and close, and then they go, oh, but I don't like speaking to people.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what did we do this for?
or they spoke to people, they love it, but then they confuse them so much by just spending all the time, not developing rapport. So yeah, it's maximizing every single one of those. That's just such a powerful package. I love hearing about that. So what's the best way people can learn more, reach out and connect with you, pick up some of your, learning, training, and resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they want, they can go and connect with me on LinkedIn, which is just linkedin.com/John Bellamy, Bellamy. Or I've got some special free resources for your listeners as well, Mike. So if they want to go to direct messaging, that's MSGing, so directmessaging.com/BIRN. And I'm sure we'll have that link there somewhere for them. There's a bunch of free resources there just to help them get started with the LinkedIn process. There's a bunch of videos and everything in there. Particularly, they dive a lot deeper into what we've spoken about today, which is fantastic. Excellent.
Well, John, thank you so much for your time. It was really great to discuss this powerful platform with you. Really had a great time talking to you, and really, it's a treat to talk to someone that is coming from the old school of doing things the really hard way, like knocking on doors like you did, and then now you're finding the really efficient way of getting it done. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on board.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.